Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. As some of you might know, I come from Romania and I lived my childhood and most of my teenage years under the communist system of the dictator Ceausescu. Good and bad, like any other regime, it matters the proportion between good and bad. I can tell you it was not that good, let's put it this way. Certain freedoms, let's say temporary privileges here in the United States of America, for instance, and in the West, were very much infringed. Freedom of speech, of expression, and many others. Let's say I am very sensitive when I see trends here or politicians making statements that point out to me, at least, in a direction that leads to those times. And I'm always pointing those out. It's like you got burnt by something. Every time you see something that reminds you of that, you are making other people aware of it. And I see this right now, and a very dangerous statement coming from the Czech president. And this reminds me of concentration camps or internment camps, if you want, however you want to call them. And you say, Emil, you're jumping the gun here. No, it's a revolution step by step. And it's not in our benefit, it's in their benefit. So let me read you here the statement coming from this newly elected Czech president, who was a general. He's a general, I think, a retired general. I think he was also busy in NATO. So he's one of their guys. He said certain things at the beginning, before he was, sworn in as the president. He said certain things that he got the Ukrainians upset, and then he just pedaled back. Well, this is the title here of this article coming from Reuters. Czech president says Russians in West should be monitored more. Well, it might sound logical to some, even though the West is not at war with Russia. Because you might look at the Japanese so-called internment camps, and we're going to discuss that too, or the German concentration camps. And I will use dictionaries to define these terms, so you understand that internment camp is a concentration camp. Because you intern people somewhere to concentrate them over there. I will use we don't like that, but let's use the definitions. What I'm thinking, that's gonna be, or could be, the next step. Now you monitor them, that's the first step. Second one could be, I don't know, grab them and question them, and then maybe just keep them away from the society so you make sure that you are safe. These are the steps I see. Emily, you jumped the gun. I don't want to get to that point. I'm not trying people, I mean, it's just a, I don't want to say that, natural course if you go that way. Because once you start treating a certain group in a certain way, what would prevent you from escalating it? And escalating, it's hard to stop getting more power. If you, like a thief, when a thief steals something, as a child, steals something small, and then steals something bigger and bigger, until it's caught or stopped. He's gonna want more and more because he or she got away with. So if you think that this talk of monitoring a group of people that you're not at war with, it will not lead to concentration camps, of internment camps, I don't want to wait until we get there. I foresee that happening, and I think I would talk about it. And I am right now. So let's go and see what this guy is saying. Remember, he is, in the name of good, he's going to do this. But in the name of good, a lot of crimes were committed. Russians living in Western countries should come under tighter scrutiny, they ate an R here, from security services as Russia wages war in Ukraine. Czech President Petr Pavel told Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. Please go and find out who, among others, funds this. When I was in Romania, in the communist system, when I was a teenager, I remember people listening to Radio Free Europe and the Voice of America. Yes, and everybody. And then after the so-called revolution, which was a revolution because it changed the system, I read about who sponsors, who are some of the financiers. And you're going to find out the US State Department, among others, CIA, and so on. You don't believe me? Look into it. Now, let's move on. So, and that was an interest, right? And I'm quoting the president. I believe that, as in the case of a number of world conflicts in the past, when there is an ongoing war, the security measures related to Russian nationals should be stricter than in normal times. Yes, my man, but ongoing war is not between, let's say, Czech Republic and Russia, or is it? Are you at war? So see, he puts things together. That tells me he's a weasel. He tries to push it into, when there's war, there's a precedent right over there. Now, it doesn't mean the precedent is good, but he's not discussing that. By definition, in his brain, is good. Now remember, let's say you have the Russians right now just rounding up, just getting ahead of themselves, ahead of Mr. Petr Pavel, going ahead of everybody and say, okay, now we're going to just get all these Europeans living in Russia in a little friendly camp, okay? What do you think these guys will say? Oh my God. And they will say the same thing this guy says. We want to make sure that you don't engage in anything. And this previous, precedent, you can take Germany, you can take United States of America with the Japanese internment camps and so on. They call them internment camps. And I'm going to use the words. Let's go and see what's going on here with this guy, and then we're going to go to definitions. So, and I'm quoting, so, this is based on this is his statement, this is the reasoning that he bases the behavior, the action. So, all Russians living in Western countries should be monitored much more than in the past. So, they are monitored, but now there will be more. Pavel, a former army chief and NATO official elected to office this year, said it was a cost of war. Well, don't use that, because in the cost of war, crimes happen. Oh, here you have it. He used the examples of Japanese living in the United States during World War II. Yes, but Japan was at war with United States, declared. Is there a war here in the Western countries and Russia that I don't know of? So you see, this guy is a weasel, and he is a former army chief. All right? He is the president of Czech Republic. I will never, and I did before, I will not trust this guy again. And I did. He used the example of Japanese living in the United States, blah, 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 blah. In 1942, U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066 authorizing the imprisonment of Japanese Americans in the aftermath of Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor. Some 120,000 Japanese were held at 10 camps because of the fears that the Japanese Americans were enemy sympathizers, but they were at war. That's the thing, that these guys are somehow, how should I call it, not missing, because they don't miss, they know exactly what's going on, just ignoring. All right, so let's go and see, now go to the definitions, right? Internment of Japanese Americans. During World War II, United States forcibly relocated and incarcerated, all right, incarcerated at least 125,284 people of Japanese descent in 75 identified incarceration sites. Okay, now let's see. Next one. Let's see internment camp. Let's see some synonyms for you. Captivity, confinement, enslavement, bondage, arrest, house arrest, servitude, custody, detainment, detention, capture, okay? And then I will go to, since this is internment, let's see what's a concentration, what the concentration means. Since they say internment, concentration, but that was used by the Germans, they didn't want to use it, I'm guessing. The concentration, the act or process of concentrating, that means bringing together of something. The Japanese in the internment camps. That's a process of concentrating them. That means it's a camp of concentration. The state of being concentrated. So, my friends, you take it however you want, I take it however I want, but I don't want to get to that point where you can't do anything about it, okay? It's too late at that point. It's too late. And this guy just saying that, it shows me his way of thinking. He thinks this way. Who thinks like this? Remember, Western Europe is not at war with Russia. So his argument doesn't stand his basis because the United States, remember that internment. And let me give you this. If that internment of Japanese citizens, whatever they were over there, was fair, why did the US government pay reparations to the survivor? And that was very embarrassing. I think about $15,000 were the reparations for the survivors of the internment camps. I think it was in 2000 or 1990 something. Now you tell me, why do you pay? It was reparations for something that was done that even the USA recognized the government that was wrong in a war. It was the declared war. So this guy mentioned something that even the United States says was wrong by paying them and reparations. And, he uses that even omitting the fact that the countries were at war. So this guy is a weasel. This guy has a tyrant mentality, I should add. Remember, he's Czech Republic. He's not Ukraine. If this would happen in Ukraine, I would say, yes, I understand that, because these guys can get engaged in, assassinates, in all kind of sabotage and so on. Now, I'm not saying, I agree with that, but I would be a little bit more inclined to say, well, I understand the reasoning. But this guy, what is he talking about? And from that, he can go to someone else. Let's say you have some Czech citizens that don't like some policies, some tolerant policies pushed on them by Brussels. Will they be paid attention on and maybe incarcerated, internment, in internment camps? You go from one thing to another. There's not a declared war. They want to do that. Why? They might act stupidly. What if they say, you might, because you think differently than he wants you to think? He say, you know what? You might act violently against our government. Let's pay more attention on your group. So move it from Russians only now. Next time it's going to be about you. Let's say you're an atheist. And say, atheists might get engaged in all kind of violent actions. We should keep an eye on you more than everybody else. And then from that we can go to internment camps. So we want to make sure that you are over there until we re-educate you. You think I'm crazy? Doesn't matter. Sometimes I think too. But anyway, just I don't want to get that point. This guy is a weasel. And I liked it at first. He seemed logical. When he said that, well, Ukraine eventually has to, this is what you said, Ukraine eventually has to negotiate with the Russians. Oy vey, no, you can't do that. And then said, okay, my bad. Then say something, okay, and started flagellating himself. That's what he did. Weasel. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.